it's incredibly peaceful if you're doing it right. It's just a lovely place to be and being in the moment. People teach mindfulness. Racing drivers know all about mindfulness. If they're doing it right, it's particularly endurance racing where you're in the car for some time and it's not just a short squirt of concentration. You've got to manage your emotions over a period of time. But for the pit crews as well, they've also got to manage these incredible spikes of absolute frantic activity, of needing to be absolutely millimeter perfect, of not messing up, of not making a safety mistake. And then long periods of boredom in between where you're just worrying about your car that's going around the track and you're powerless. There's nothing you can do about it. And then it's in and another go. So it's really good. I mean, it can be such a motorsport, like all sports, can be restorative and healing. And when we get it right and use it in the right way, ultimately, yes, of course, you're looking to give people a really good weekend. But actually, we're looking for that to have impact across the year, and that the experience and the learning that they have through doing this is something that lives with them and which they can rely on in their later life. And that's really important.
Heroes dinner tonight. And that's another element of it. It's going to be big. It's the tent, I have to say, looking fantastic this weekend.
It should be cost enough. Yeah, absolutely. It is a fantastic thing. I mean, it's the most impressive marquee we've had by some margin. I mean, I sort of drove down into the paddock, and for those who are perhaps on the live stream who've not been here themselves, Anglesey spent £250,000 on resurfacing. There's a couple of areas of the track which they've improved that we're just getting a little bit tired, but the paddock has been dramatically improved. So Anglesey have done wonderful things in investing in the facilities here. New shower blocks, new toilet blocks, the camping, the sort of traditionally the Marshall's camping is much better than it was. And it's given us this fantastic surface. We're going to find out how it handles water tomorrow, because that's always or in the past has been quite challenging where you've had pools of water forming in the paddock. But yeah, the marquee's amazing. So tonight I think we've got seating for 500, but a bit of an audience with some of our guests. Still got tickets available, I think, which are available in the marquee for anybody who hasn't got their name down yet in order to be able to come in. But please just come and join us. It's a really important part of the weekend. This is more about the bigger community thing than just motor racing, and we're looking forward to that tonight.
Good. Okay. Got any plans to drive at all in the next few hours?
Yeah, I've just seen my car go out again, so I suspect I'm out in a minute. So I better go down and go and do that. We've got a car in the pits at the moment, sadly, so the CRV is not looking as healthy as it should do. So they're just trying to work out exactly what's going on there. We've got two guys driving it, both of whom don't have the use of their left arm or don't have a left arm. We've got a guy who's spannering it who doesn't have the use of his right arm. So basically anyone who's missing an upper limb, we put on the CRV. So there's a lot of people who are working very hard at the moment on that car to get it out again. But the joy of this format, and it's pretty deliberate, is to make sure that, when people have incidents, that they've got the ability to be able to recover, that they can still get people qualified. And we'll do all that we can as a race organisers, Bark and the committee will do everything we can to get people back out in order so they can enjoy the race. So yeah, I better go and do a bit of driving around.
I think you better. James Cameron, thanks very much. We'll talk to you later on. I've no doubt of that. And don't forget, this is a remembrance service with a motor race attached. Jim and I always have a little bit of banter about that, because I'm going on about what an exciting race it is, and he's always telling me how good it is that people like Matt Stringer can get to go out in there and have a race. Anyway, whilst all that was going on, we've had already the first 40 minutes of the session have elapsed. So let's tell you what's going on as far as times is concerned, because as I mentioned earlier on, times are important because they set grid positions. This is the only session, this 2.5 hour session is the only session in which times will count for the grid. And Rob Boston Racing is the quickest car out there at the moment with the number 19 Lotus Elise, a 1 minute 38.358, his best time, but he's only a quarter of a second quicker than the 88 relay team, that being the GPW racing car. Pete Walters was the quickest driver. Jeff Price is now driving it, and I think it's probably a Pete Walters time, that 1:38.630. And as I say, Jeff is now behind the wheel of the number 88 car. That's rubbish, because he's not behind the wheel of the 88 car. He has taken his version of the 88 car, because there are 3 88 cars, and Jeff has taken his version out. Jeff Price is in the red number 88 car. Pete Waters is in the black number 88 car. So if you're standing around the circuit, it gets a bit confusing. You can see number 88 go past, and then half an hour later you look out and number 88 goes past and it's a completely different car. Well, yes, Pete Waters drives the black car. Jeff Price drives the red one. And then later on, that car will be out with Lee Bristow driving a number 88, and that's going to be orange. So, as I say, that's the hard part of watching the Race of Remembrance, because not only do you have to deal with aggregate times, but you also have to deal with rather confusing changes of car. So I think the 138.63 was done by Pete Waters. Jeff Price, on his most recent lap, did a 1 minute 42.9. Third fastest, Michael O'Reilly, still doing the driving in the Optinec team car. I don't think anybody else has been out for Optinec yet. So Mike O'Reilly has done a 139.159. That's the number 3 car. Again, that is a 3-car team. Piston Emotional, John Chiverell is still out with number 110. 139.510 for him, just over a second slower than pole, but still fast enough to be on the second row of the grid. Third row of the grid being shared at the moment by another 2 Caterhams. Steve McCulley with the Heroes Caterham, we'll call it that because number 17, Steve McCulley, the DSP racing car, runs as a Heroes car, the car being the Hero because it does the full 12 hours. And he is just ahead of Zolt Sabai, who has done a 1 minute 39.909 for the Cockwombles team, number 41. Scuderia BOG, number 27, is next up. And that now has the blue car version, which is Matt Drew, Paul Begley and Robert Cooper, the other drivers. Robert Cooper's already been out. And a new car up into the top 8, into 8th place, number 64. This is the Solo 64 121 team. Ryan Hooker was out earlier on. Now Will Rossetti is out at the wheel of that car. Or Will Rossetti's version is out. 1 minute 41.275. And then 9th fastest, although currently in the tented area, is the Racy McRaceface team. They are 9th fastest with car number 7. 10th fastest, but leading the invitational class, is number 69. This is the Lotus, sorry, not the invitational class, it's the leading class E car, which is the 2-litre class car. And leading that class is the car of Able Care Admark. That's the one, number 69, Lotus Elise. This is a Lotus Elise Cup R car. David McInulty, Jason McInulty, and it's Jason McInulty currently behind the wheel. And then next up in second place in that class is the Rodison Motorsport Lotus. So in terms of the Heroes car, we've got the Heroes car fastest in the shape of Rob Boston Racing with the Lotus Elise, and then way down in 10th place, but the second of the other Heroes cars being the Able Care Lotus Elise Cup, and then behind that is the Rodison Motorsport car, which is the Mazda MX-5, and the Rodison Motorsport car in Class E as well as the Lotus Elise Cup class car is. And Paul Rodison has done a 1:43.106. So there's only half a second between those two cars leading Class E at the moment. Fastest in the invitational class, I mentioned it a little while ago. This is the Synchro Motorsport Honda Civic, and this is the automatic version of the Honda Civic, number 76, which currently has number 76 has James Dennison driving, and yes, so he's leading the invitational class. And leading in the C1 class is the other one we need to find. Leading C1 class is number 432, the Rapsport racing car. And that's currently in the hands of Rapsport Racing, number 432. Currently in the hands of Gary Mitchell. So there's just a tenth of a second separating first from second in the C1 class. The Cockwombles bog off. That's presumably because we've got two Cockwombles cars. And so that's number 420 being the second of them. And that's Scott Lawrence, who is second fastest in the C1 class. And then third fastest in the C1 class is number 417, the FDL packaging car, which Stephen Cunliffe has taken over from Ian Cameron. Haven't seen Dave Scotting in that car yet. So the top three as far as C1s are concerned, 432 is fastest currently in the pits. 420 is second fastest out on the track with 420 with Scott Lawrence driving. And third fastest in the C1 class is also in the pits, the FDL packaging racing car number 417. But the three of them are separated by less than a second anyway. 2 minutes 02.8 for the Rapsport car number 432, a 2 minutes 02.9 for Scott Lawrence with the Cockwombles car number 420, and a 2 minutes 3.5 for the FDL packaging racing car of Scott Cunliffe, number 417. Stephen Cunliffe, I should say, number 417. Looking out for the number 400, that car has been out. The number 400 car is the one that was damaged in the incident in the paid practice session earlier today with Stephen Bezic driving. That car has been out with Andy Mackay driving, but has done 7 laps, so that's not too bad. And the other car that we were missing earlier on was the number 72 after its incident in qualifying. And I don't think we've seen number 72 at all in the session thus far. No, I don't think we have. So number 72 not out. But number 400 is. So altogether in this session, said earlier on, we've had 50 minutes of it now completed, and 42 cars have done a lap, including the Honda CR-V, but this Honda CR-V only did a single lap and has now come back into the pits. And no sooner did I start talking about it than Colin Gillespie has actually taken the number 72 car just out for a exploratory lap and brings it back into the pit lane now. So number 72, that car having been damaged this morning, has had a fair bit of repair work done. So well done to the TWP Motorsport team, or TWP Racing, given their proper title, getting that Lotus Elise back out onto the track. And Colin Gillespie, who, as I say, was driving it when it had its coming together out on the circuit in the paid practice session this morning, now taking it out for a single lap. So hopefully we'll see some quickish laps coming in now from the 72 car, certainly capable of being a quick car. And that driver lineup is also quite a good one to have here. Colin and Oliver Wilmot sharing the drives with Steve Griffiths, and as I say, Colin Gillespie, the fourth driver of the crew. The other one, which has just been out for one lap, as I say, was the CR-V, which, as James Cameron was telling us a few minutes ago, has had a slight mechanical hiccup, and hopefully they'll be able to get that car repaired and out before too long. And another car which has had some difficulties, having only completed 5 laps, is the number 9 Mazda MX-5 from the Jaffa Cake Racing team. 2 Jaffa Cake Mazda MX-5s here with us this weekend. 9 is one of them, the other one is 96. So they only have to buy one set of numbers for it, and they can make any choice of number they want, really, with their 2 cars. So the number 9 car is the 2-litre Mazda, and that's only done 1 lap. The other car, number 96, has done more laps than that and is currently 25th fastest, although it's 6th in its class, 96. And that has Sam Moody behind the wheel at the moment, and has done a time of 1:51.498. So Rob Boston into the pits with the Elise number 19, and it's Peter Mansfield is into the pits. Rob Boston has just brought the car into the pits. So Peter Mansfield and Rob Boston planning to drive with just the two of them at the wheel of the Lotus Elise. 1:38.358 is the fastest time. Second fastest is the 88 GPW Racing Caterham, which now has Lee Bristow's version out there. I'll say Lee Bristow with the orange 88, so he's now setting the times, but nobody has gone as fast as Pete Walters did earlier on with that 1:38.630. Third fastest, the number 3 team, Optineck Racing, Mark Roberts is now out at the wheel of the they've got different versions of blue, but kind of Miami blue on Mark Roberts' car as opposed to the darker blue and orange on Michael O'Reilly's car. So Mark Roberts now out with the Optineck team for the Optineck team, 1:39.159. 1:10, and that's third fastest. Fourth fastest is the Piston Emotional team, which Gary Smith has now taken over the baton for Piston Emotional. Fifth fastest, number 17, is the DSP Heroes car, which Stephen McCulley was driving earlier on, and Don Henshaw is now driving. That time, 1:39.541. Close, but not too far off the time that was set earlier on by Steve McCulley. Paul Aram still to come in that car. I've just noticed, actually, the delightful little Honda Civic that we heard from James Cameron earlier on, and that car just going through there a moment ago, now heading out of church and along the school straight. That's number 319, the Scuderia Sundial car, which, just see who's in that car at the moment to see whether Jim Cameron has taken it over yet. 319, he is, Jim Cameron then. So no sooner did he finish talking to us than, good as his word, he now takes over the driving of the car and is just coming down through the corkscrew, is he? Or coming out of Peel still? Still trying to... here he comes out of Peel, yes. Just working out how long it takes to get from Rocket to Peel and then down into the corkscrew, onto the Tom Price straight, longest straight, which heads away from the sea and up towards the hairpin at... Well, it's called the hairpin at the end of the Tom Price straight. And then it's back down the return straight and then turning left. And we'll see what Jim Cameron is able to do. The car's best lap so far, a 2:04.245. Jim's last lap was a 2:07.574. And here he comes now into the final turn, leading the car over onto its right-hand wheels as he turns through there, kicks the left rear up into the air, and he comes through and does 2:06.538. So that's an improvement for him. Doesn't improve the car's time, but the 319 then, the Scuderia Sundial team car, it really is a very much Gulf retro styled livery on that car. Currently 7th in the Citroen C1 class. The Citroen C1 class still being led by number 432 for Rab Sport Racing. And that is now Josh Potter behind the wheel of the Rab Sport car. the advantage it has in the class has gone up. So either Josh or possibly Gary Mitchell didn't improve time in that car, because it's now further ahead of the rest of the field than it was before. Second in the Citroen C1 class now is number 467, the Team Cat DT, which is Phil Marsh currently at the wheel. And he's done a 2 minutes 2.857, and then third fastest is Scott Lawrence with the Cockwombles buy one get one free, or BOGOF. Car number 420, Scott Lawrence has done a time of 2 minutes 2.924, so 0.8 of a second separating the top three in that class. Then it's Ian Cameron back into the FDL car now, so 417. They've cycled through all three of their drivers, Ian Cameron, Stephen Cunliffe, and I didn't actually see Dave Scotting driving it, but he must have done. Anyway, Ian Cameron is back behind the wheel of the 417 car. And then fifth in the C1 class is the TCS Motorsport car number 513. And that currently has Paul Abraham behind the wheel of it. I wanted to get down as far as the 318 car, currently in sixth. We just about made it. Team slower by name, not necessarily by nature. David Drinkwater is out there, old friend of mine. So good to have you here, David, although obviously you're in the car, you can't hear me, but the car has done a 2 minutes 4.134 to be sixth in the C1 class, just ahead of the just ahead of the Jim Cameron driven Scuderia Sundial car 319, and then the next up behind that is car number 103, which is the Mission Motorsport entry, as opposed to the Scuderia Sundial car, which is being driven by Mission Motorsport people. But anyway, the Mission Motorsport, official Mission Motorsport C1, that is eighth fastest at the moment, car number 103, currently with Mayrick Cox driving it. Just looking down for the number 51 car, talking of Mission Motorsport, the Mission Motorsport 2 entry, number 51. This is the Mazda MX-5 that Marino and Dario Franchitti are driving, along with Richard Meaden, Jamie Clark, and Sophie Burt. Sophie Burt, great piece about her in the programme, one of the beneficiary stories. Sophie, who not necessarily the typical recruit into Mission Motorsport, but has done a great job. And she currently in number 51 car is 20th overall. Her time, a 1 minute 48.074. She's only a tenth of a second slower than the car immediately in front of her. So her last lap was a 52, so she needs to find some time. I'm not sure who it was in that car who set the 48.074. Anyway, that's the Mission Motorsport number 2 car, which is the Mazda MX-5. Number 101 is Mission Motorsport 1. That's the GT86. We were talking about that earlier on. That's the car that Matt Stringer is on the driver lineup, along with Tom Ingram and Nick Trott. It's Matt Stringer driving at the moment. Actually, it's not, because the car's in the pits. But when you see the GT86 come out again, it'll be... we'll see whether Matt is still behind the wheel, but it is currently 9th in Class E, 21st overall, with a time of 1:48.283. So Mission Motorsport 1 is the Toyota GT86. Mission Motorsport 2 is the Mazda MX-5. Mission Motorsport 3 is... Oh, that's the Honda CR-V, isn't it? That's why we haven't got it. That's still suffering from its problems in the pits. So the CR-V is Mission Motorsport 3, and then Mission Motorsport 4 is the Honda C1, Citroen C1, which Maverick Cox is currently driving, and that car currently 8th in the C1 class, just ahead of the rather troubled 400 car, which Stephen Bezic did take out, do some laps, did a 2 minutes 4.6. So still needs to find 3 or 4 tenths of a second to get itself off the bottom of the C1 grid, number 400. The TWP Lotus Elise, number 72, after its troubles earlier on, Colin Gillespie went out and did a couple of shakedown laps and now hands the car over to Steve Griffiths. And the car has now done a 1 minute 41.535. Steve Griffiths has been out for 3 or 4 laps now. And yes, in fact, he's just done that time, hasn't he? So he has moved up into 9th place overall. And that is second in Class D behind the Rob Boston Lotus Elise. So Rob Boston currently in the pits with his Lotus, TWP with their Lotus out doing some good times, as I say, currently in 9th place. The other TWP car is the Mazda MX-5, number 73, which Nick Dohill has now done a time of 1:43.699, and that is 3rd in the Class E for the up to 2 litre cars. This is being a 2 litre Mazda MX-5, not like some of the other Mazdas, which are only 1600 cc's. So we're coming up towards halfway through the session, 2.5 hour session of day qualifying. And so this session not split for the individual drivers as was the original plan and has been in previous years. But this year it is one single 2.5 hour session. And let's say coming up towards halfway through it, we've had an hour and 12 minutes and an hour and 17 still to go. And the front row of the grid at the moment shared between a Lotus Elise from the Heroes class, Rob Boston Racing, and the GPW Caterham Relay Team, cars numbered 88, with Lee Bristow, the most recent driver to be out for GPW, but he's got they're all in the pits at the moment, or in the tent at the back. So 1 minute 38.358 is the time to beat, the pole position time provisionally, 1:38.358. Second fastest, 1:38.630. That was a time set by Pete Waters earlier on in the session. And third fastest is the Piston Emotional Relay Team of Tim Child, who was the most recent one to be out. Gary Smith and John Shiverall, the other two, have already both done their laps. So to all intents and purposes, we may not see them again. They may have, well, they're out at the moment, actually. Tim Child is out there at the moment. And Pete Waters has just gone back out in the number 88 for GPW. So look out for the black car of Pete Waters, the Caterham, number 88, just coming out of the final turn now. No, it's not. That's another one. Another Caterham. That was the Racy McRaceface team car. Thought it was Pete Waters' car at first. Where is Pete on the circuit? Not sure. Where's the tracker? Here it is. Just going across the top of the hill at the moment, coming down into the corkscrew now, according to the tracker. But either I'm misreading it or the tracker hasn't quite got him in the right place. So let's see if he's on his way back from the hairpin. Although there is a Caterham coming down. There's the Blue Morgan from Aero Racing. That's the one that's a bit easier to pick out. Number 21, currently in the hands of Paul Thomas. Phil Thomas, the blue one. And where is Pete Waters? Oh, Pete Waters coming back into the pits again. That's why the tracker wasn't quite tracking his progress correctly. So Pete Waters only did 2 laps at most, I would say, and now he brings the 88 car back into the pits. And the Optinec team, number 3, is also on its way down the pit lane, and I think that is a change of driver as well, because that's Michael O'Reilly going back out onto the track for team number 3, Optinec Racing. And the screen tells me it's Paul Vernon, which confuses me. Yes, maybe it is Paul Vernon's car then. So Paul Vernon, it is, who's taken the Optinec team car back out. Those 2 Caterham still sharing the second row. Piston Emotional number 110, third fastest with a 1:38.881, and then Optinec Mate Racing 1:39.15 now. Now, I did suggest earlier on that Paul Vernon might be the quickest of the drivers for Optinec. Michael O'Reilly, Mark Roberts and Paul Vernon. They all started doing the Caterham Graduate Series together and kind of moved up the ranks at the same time as each other. Although Paul Vernon is now in the higher 420R section. Through goes the Blue Morgan once again. Phil Thomas is driving that car at the moment. I say it's a 4-car Morgan team, number 21, and they've got 5 drivers. So, yes, Tony Hurst is in the rainbow one. And then I have to work out, I think Craig Hamilton Smith is in the other one with the stripes. And then the plain white one has 2 drivers driving it. So we're going to have to keep on our toes to work out what's going on in the Aero Racing 1 team. Say the Aero Racing 2 car, number 20, is another +4, but runs as a hero car with just Paul Vokes and Ian Payne, just the 2 of them sharing the driving. Paul Vokes is at the wheel at the moment of car number 20, although the car is currently not being shown as circulating, stopped out on the circuit somewhere. Oh, a big lock up there coming into the final corner from number 96, the Mazda MX-5 of the Jaffa Cake Racing team. 96 currently in the hands of Andy Bailey. Nick Trott is now driving Mission Motorsports car 101, the Toyota GT86. Alan James at the wheel of the 76 Honda Civic. That's the car with the automatic gearbox, which Alan James is driving. He is in 30th place. 31st is number 77, the manual Synchro Motorsport Honda Civic, which Steve Davey currently drives. And I'm afraid still no sign of the Honda CR-V coming out onto the circuit. Apropos things Honda, I can see the Honda Civic of Ricky Coomber down there in the pit lane at the moment. Ricky, in fact, himself is just, well, he's not getting into the car because he's putting his head in through the driver's seat, talking to whoever it is who's the driver at the moment. Ricky Coomber in the RKC entered car, and that is number 99 that he shares with Gavin Pickering and Harry Omerod. And the other RKC car is number 999, very last car on the entry list, which Mark Simmons will be driving with Chris Threadgill and Zach Lucas. Zach from Formula Ford Fiestas. '16 BMW going through. Oh, red flag. Red flag. So the session just about got just over halfway through without an incident, but sadly now there has been an incident out on the circuit, and the red flag brings everything to a halt. And just looking around to see what the reason for the red flag might be. Can't see an incident anywhere. Can't see quite the whole circuit. We can see a lot of the circuit, but not all of it. Claire says it's in a very purposeful way and then doesn't say what it is. We think there may be a Citroen off at Rocket. Yes, it seems to have gone off at Rocket out. So whether it's... So anyway, it is a red flag situation then. Still just over an hour of the session to go. This time won't be added on, but it does give everybody an opportunity to come into the pits whilst the circuit is made safe once again. think it might be number 420, the Cockwombles Bog Off team. So the extra, the one you got for free from the Cockwombles team, which Scott Lawrence was driving at the time. And it currently is the Citroen C1 class leader. So it's hard to see from its position up there. 2 minutes 1.747 was its best time, 0.3 of a second quicker than anybody else. But it's hard to see from here, but I wouldn't suggest, Claire Smith, who has the binoculars trained on it, will tell me if I'm wrong, but my impression was that it hasn't actually hit the barrier, or if it has, it's done so only gently. But it's come off on the exit to the rocket out section of the circuit. And as I say, that's why we've got the red flag. So there's lots of rescue units up at the site of Scott Lawrence's car. It's about as far away as it can be from race control. So once it is recovered, it will then have to be brought down through the internal roads, and then it will have to cross the circuit. So we'll have a little bit more of a delay whilst they'll do that, because there's actually an internal road through the corkscrew. So they'll have to kind of bring it down on the track and then bring it in through the corkscrew, which would be used if we weren't on the full international circuit, as we are this weekend for the Race of Remembrance. But as I say, the problem is going to be if there is damage done to that car, the Cockwombles team will have to get on with getting it fixed in order to get the car fit for night practice. Remind you, night practice takes place this evening from 5 o'clock until 7 o'clock, 2 hours straight through, no individual portions for each driver as was originally intended. It will be a single qualifying session in which all drivers will be invited to participate. And as I say, that will start at 5 o'clock and go through till 7 o'clock this evening. And then racing tomorrow, well, the race itself, the Race of Remembrance, will start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. However, there will be a grid walk before that. Cars will be released onto the grid at 2:15. But before that, between about 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, will be what James Cameron laughingly calls the biathlon of foolishness, which amounts to people dressing up in, no, not necessarily, but people putting on any costumes that they feel like putting on, and then running across the circuit and over to the beach, and then they swim out to sea, touch the Blarney Stone, come back and run back. And then whoever does that first gets a round of applause. And whoever takes longest to do it gets an even longer round of applause. So it's all a bit of fun. It's all in aid of charity. And so that will be taking place before the cars are released onto the grid for the Race of Remembrance tomorrow, about 1 o'clock in the morning. But before that, tomorrow, we've got 3 hours of the supercars, which we'll be driving round and round, charity supercars being driven round between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock. There's a free practice session tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. So that's the schedule for tomorrow in reverse order. Recovery work is continuing on that C1, which makes me slightly more concerned. It is now rolling off the grass where it had come to rest. Yes, and I'm now more positive, because I was concerned that the recovery was taking longer than I felt it ought to. And that led me to believe that the car couldn't be driven away. But it seems clear now that the car can be driven away, and where it came to rest wasn't quite as far around Rocket as I thought it was. It actually came off at the left-handed part of Rocket Inn. So he's gone on what I would guess is either straight on, or he's got halfway around the corner, and then the car has understeered straight on. And now Scott's got the car rolling again. They've got it off the grass, out of the bog, and is on all four wheels, pointing in the right direction, travelling under its own steam. And I am very optimistic we'll therefore be able to get the session underway. And that, more importantly, as far as the Cockwombles team is concerned, their car seems unharmed. So I suggest a celebration with cream cakes around the Cockwombles team, and Scott Lawrence will be coming in to explain what happened, and no doubt he'll be saying, "Oh, I just got somebody else got in my way." But anyway, the car certainly seems to have got away with that one. We'll see it coming down into the pit lane, and when it does so, we'll be able to get the session underway again. For a little under an hour still remains of this session. We'll be going through until 4:15, at which time the race program calls for us to have a tea break. And no doubt everybody will be gathering down at Jaffa Cakes Racing at that point. So Scott, now he wants to go round the back. He's been told not to. Yeah, the car looks fine, just a bit muddy. So I think that's, as I say, we got away with that one. And as I say, it was a slightly longer delay than we really wanted to have. But as I say, under the circumstances, given that the car didn't actually hit anything, doesn't seem to have hit anything, just went off into the grass and got stuck. BOGOF did get bogged down. Anyway, green flag, qualifying back underway again, with a little under an hour still to go before the checkered flag, and to see whether anybody can improve on times already set. Certainly we haven't had any improvements recently. Fastest remains Rob Boston in the Rob Boston Racing Elise, number 19. Then the GPW Racing Caterham Relay Team, which Pete Waters is back out again now. Piston Emotional and Optinec Racing sharing the second row of the grid. Tim Child and Paul Vernon now the drivers of those two cars. 110 for Piston Emotional, and Paul Vernon, the driver for Optinec Racing. Then the third row of the grid, number 17 for DSP Racing, the Heroes Caterham. Number 17, that car now in the hands of Paul Aram. He's done a 1:39.541, sharing the third row of the grid provisionally with the Cockwombles Relay Team. That's the one that you bought in order to get the other one for free. Zoltan Chabai back out at the wheel of number 41. Then Scuderia BOG, number 27, Caterham Relay Team, Paul Begley at the wheel of that car. And alongside that is number 64, the Solo 64-121 relay car of currently in the hands of Giuseppe Filet. So the session back underway again, and I say Pete Waters has gone out with the 88 GPW Racing Caterham. John Cheverill is out with Piston Emotional. Paul Vernon is out for Optinec, and Paul Aram is out for the DSP Racing Team, the Heroes Caterham. I call it the Heroes car just because it is the only car, the only Caterham in the Heroes class, and as a result, as I say, that car will be doing the whole race on its own, which makes it a bit of a hero car. And that car is currently sharing the third row of the grid with the Cockwombles car. Change of driver for 27. Scuderia BOG now has Robert Cooper driving. Pete Waters doing a great job out there. It's just gone a little bit quicker, 38.504. He's shaved a tenth off what he did a moment ago or earlier in the session. So 1 minute 38.504 still leaves the Caterham second quickest, but he's now only just over a tenth off pole position. Rob Boston Racing's Elise still in the pits and not showing any sign of going out just yet. But I say the way Pete Waters is going, he wants to get that pole position. before the end of this session, and this is the only session in which he can do it. The other Lotus Elise, or another Lotus Elise, comes into the pits. That's a 72 car, and that is, who's it bringing the car in? Colin Wilmot, and Colin Wilmot, not to be confused with Colin Gillespie, who was the driver earlier on when the car crashed. Where's Pete Waters coming down into the final turn now? Oh, he really is throwing the car through there, and 2 wheels onto the curb, but not over the curve. Good time this, possibly coming in then from Pete Waters. Depends what the rest of the lap was like, really. 139.094, so not an improvement for Pete Waters. There is an improvement further down the field, though, for a car that we've not mentioned yet. Number 81, the Scuzzle Motorsport Mazda MX-5. And that's in the hands of Nick Bailey. And Nick has done a time just improved to a 148.209. And that pushes Nick Trott down 1 place in the Mission Motorsports car, the Mission Motorsport number 1 car. Nick Trott driving the Toyota GT86 for Mission Motorsport, and that, as I say, improvement from Nick Bailey pushes him down a position, even though he was in the pit garage at the time. Still waiting for news of the Cockwomble's BOGOF team car. See whether that's going to come out again following its grassy moment earlier on. Because that car still provisionally on pole for the Citroen C1 class. And waiting for Pete Waters to come around for another lap as well. Here he comes. So Pete Waters got some traffic up ahead of him. Depends a little bit whether he had any traffic on that lap, though, whether or not that's going to be a further improvement for Pete. Flick the screen back again. No, it was another lap, even slower than his previous one, in fact. So he set 1 quick one, and now he's done 2 that are a little bit slower. So Rob Boston still holding on to that pole position. Paul Vernon not improving either in the Optinec team car. There goes the number 21 Morgan through. That's the team car, and it's currently being driven by John Richards. And I think that is the white one with the blue and green stripes. So, I'll say the Morgan with 5 drivers in their team and 4 cars to share. Yes, that's the car with the blue and green stripes on the back, which John Richards drives. The other Morgans, one of them bright blue, easy to spot, and the other 2 cars are similarly white. So trying to pick those out now while it's daylight. Of course, when it then goes dark, it becomes even more difficult to spot which car is which. Well, we had a change, and sorry, I was a bit distracted there by other things, but the Pete Walters car, which was threatening to go quicker, did indeed go quicker and has done so to the tune of over half a second. So the number 88 car, GPW Racing, now has Jeff Price, who's gone out in the red car. And so the black car has come back to the garage or back to its tent, having done a 137.680, and Jeff Price has gone back out on behalf of the GPW Racing team. 137.680 then is the new time to beat, and Rob Boston hasn't even tried, to be fair. The Lotus Elise has done 20 laps in this session, which we've had nearly 2 hours of now. Rob Boston's done just 20 laps with the Lotus Elise number 19 that he shares with Peter Mansfield. And that 20 laps compares with 88. Now, admittedly, there are 3 cars numbered 88 that Jeff Walters, Lee Bristow and Jeff Price will share. And they've done 54 laps now. In fact, there goes Jeff Price through again in the red car. Number 88, 143. Not Jeff's not as quick as Pete Walters. So this is the beauty of the relay race, you see, because you get a different car out there. It doesn't go as quickly sometimes. It's not just the car, it's the driver as well, of course. So Pete Walters, Jeff Price, and Lee Bristow then, the GPW Racing team. I was a bit slow. I've just got that now, why they're called GPW. So Walters, Price. No, it doesn't work, does it? Jeff Price and Walters. Anyway, they've gone quickest, 137.680. The Rob Boston Lotus at 138.358. Another change behind because Paul Vernon for Optinec Racing has gone third fastest now. So the trio of Optinec, Michael O'Reilly, Mark Roberts, Paul Vernon responsible for the time, 138.854, goes third fastest now. They've done 53 laps out there, and going even further, 55 laps now completed by the number 110 team car of Gary Smith, who's currently out there for 110, the Piston Emotional team. They've done 1 minute 38.881, but importantly, as far as Optinec is concerned, Paul Vernon's gone marginally quicker. So it's number 3, third fastest, 110, fourth fastest, fifth fastest, number 17. And that is another Heroes Trophy car. That's second as far as the Heroes Trophy is concerned. DSP Racing didn't actually catch who did the time in that car in the end. Stephen McCulley was quick early on. Paul Aram has been out in the car recently, and the car's best, I think, was probably Stephen McCulley, 139.541. Anyway, that's fifth. Sixth fastest, another car that's in the pits at the moment, number 41, Cock-Womble's car. This is the Cock-Womble's Caterham, the relay entry. They've done a 39.909. Seventh fastest, number 27, Scuderia BOG. And that is Matthew Drew. And he's done a 140.272. Eighth fastest, number 64, Solo 64 121 for Will Rossetti, a 140.968. Ninth fastest, number 72, is another Lotus Elise. This is a TWP Elise, which Colin Wilmot has out now. And he has done a time of 141.535. And then 10th fastest, number 199, is a car that I don't think we've mentioned yet. This is the Paul Sheard Mazda MX-5, which Paul Sheard Racing enters. Joe Marshall, Steve Foden, and Ben Hansey are driving. And it is currently in the hands of Joe Marshall, who's done that time of 141.600. James Cameron is back. We saw you go out. We watched you do some laps. We counted you out. We counted you in. How was your mission, Jim?
Well, it was awesome. I mean, that's some of the finest driving that Anglesey has ever and will ever see.
We did watch you. The trouble is that the Citroen is not the fastest car out there, so you don't kind of stand out.
No, it really. Hang on, just let me open my book of driver's excuses that I need to go through. We were indexing a new car. I was scrubbing in a new set of tyres. The rear anti-roll bar, I think, we've yet to optimize the settings of that. The sun was in my eyes, and I've done it one of my belts too tightly and slightly strangulated a testicle. So that's my only excuse. I think I can go there for.
But that does mean you can go quicker tonight when it's dark.
Yeah, very much so. And if I manage to get both testicles strangulated evenly, I think that helps my turn in, particularly into the fast left corners. This is absolutely extraordinary, and I don't know, if you can't see this because you're streaming or because you're watching online. This is Anglesey at its most beautiful. The sun is going down in a completely clear sky. We've got clouds on the horizon in the very far distance, but then the mountains, the mountain range of Snowdonia rising up behind the place is illuminated as the sun starts to go down, and it's absolutely stunning. So we're going to make the most of it. When daylight qualifying finishes at 4:15, we're going to get all of the Mission Motorsport crew. And that's the Operation Motorsport guys out as well. And
Operation Motorsport, I was going to talk to you about those earlier on. There's the guys from Canada, aren't they?
Both Canada and the US, yes. They've got both Canadian and US retired military who are here. There's a very familiar race suit that I'm looking at down in the pit lane, but it's not being worn by Liam Dwyer this time, but he was here last year. So we're going to get everybody out plus of the pit lane and go for that photograph with the hills lit up in the background. I think it'd be a really nice thing to do. But also for everybody else who's around in the pit lane, you've got a bit of a gap between one qualifying session and another. If you haven't had the chance for a good look at the Poppy car yet with the sun behind it, that's the opportunity to do it. It is an absolutely stunning piece of work, and it's not with us for very much longer. So we're finally going to have to give it back. Considering we did it for the Poppy Appeal in 2017 and we're supposed to give it back in December 2017, we've done quite well to still have it now.
And it still looks immaculate. That's the other nice thing, Jim.
Amazing, because that wrap was literally supposed to be on that car for 3.5 weeks. But the guys did such an extraordinary job that it still looks so good to this day. Really, really proud of them. And that's such an extraordinary piece of work. It's got resonance and depth and meaning, and therefore continues really to kind of touch people. It's a fantastic thing, and for us to have it here as a safety car for the 3rd year in a row, it's very cool.
And that is the car, of course, that they will be using to start the race with at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And I was just you're saying about the sun going down. It's just gone 3:45. It's 3:50 now. The 3:45 will be the end of the race on Sunday.
Yes.
And my weather forecast says that Sunday is actually going to be really nice. So hopefully by the time we get to Sunday, I'm going to ignore Saturday completely. I forget it doesn't happen.
Sure.
But Sunday, when the race is finishing, we're going to have the sun going down as well. We're going to have, you've got to have about 160 drivers here this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to have 160 exhausted racing drivers. Yep. 45 exhausted racing cars,
yes,
all with a story to tell at the end of the race, aren't you?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's what we're all kind of focused for. Let's go out there and do some good endurance racing and make sure that they're coming home at the end. But I think we'll see the gamut of weather over the course of the weekend. So, but my God, when it's good, it's so good here, though, isn't it?
It's definitely the most beautiful racetrack in the world. I was talking to Dickie Meaden earlier on, of course. Apart from writing for Evo magazine, I think he's editor at the moment, so he does. He knows what he's talking about.
I think Evo. Stuart Gallagher would fight him for that, but yeah,
is he not yet?
No.
Right, okay.
But he is the editor of Vantage, I think. So
right.
I think that's Dickie's responsibility.
He's driven an awful lot of laps around here. Yeah. But he's never ever raced here.
Really?
And I was then pulling his leg about talking about beautiful racetracks and how he loves the Nürburgring. But he said, actually, no, this place does come close. And I love it. I mean, it is. It's got everything that the Nürburgring has to offer. It's got blind corners. It's got steep hills. And the only difference is that if you go off here, you'll finish up in the sea.
Well, and that is genuinely different to the Eiffel, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, my racing career started at the Nürburgring before I ever raced in the UK. And circuits that have got some proper elevation to them, that have got corners that tighten, that have got stuff that drops away from you, are special. And they do require commitment and courage and vision, more than some of the places where they're more flat, they're airfield based, all of the rest of it. And you don't have so much dramatic weight transfer as you do into corners here, like Seaman, or as you go up towards Rocket. The effect of that hill on the car then as you crest over the top of the hill is dramatic, as a couple of C1s have already found out.
I was going to say, particularly with something like the C1, which just doesn't have the power to pull you out of those situations. No. You have to use, dare I say it, driver technique and skill and all of those things in order to get the car. And in some ways, the fact that it is less powerful is more of a challenge to you, therefore.
It's all about suspending disbelief a bit as well in those. Yeah, so you just sort of, she'll take it, and you kind of tip her in. the C1's really come alive when it gets wet, particularly around a place like this, because anywhere where you can really get the car moving around underneath is really properly exciting. And they're great little things. I mean, they're designed as a shopping trolley of a car to do school runs and to be safe, and therefore they understeer. But one of the only modifications that's permitted and is insisted upon is that they run custom bottom arms. And what they do is a cut and shut of that bottom arm. So where the top suspension point is entirely standard, the bottom has been moved forward by about 2 inches. And what that does is if you look at a racing C1, you can see the wheel arch then has got the wheel sits very far forward in the wheel arch, and it's pushed not only a load of camber into the front end, which gives that car real bite as it turns in, but caster as well. And that's the thing that's really critical, and it changes the feel of the car entirely. They're still a bit pushy on when it's bone dry like this, so not the most engaging of things to drive. But as soon as it becomes wet, they're just having an absolute ball, and you're dancing on and off the throttle through the quick corners like church, and they're really good fun.
So, you're going to be driving this thing tomorrow. It's going to be raining tomorrow.
Yep.
Who actually is in charge of setting up the car and deciding what you do to things like anti-roll bar settings and tyre pressures? I mean, you're an experienced driver now, Jim. You must be having your two penneth. There'll be the team manager telling you what to do. So how does that work?
Well, I'm rubbish at Race of Reemembrance because I'm spending all my time in here talking to you. Or,
there is that, yeah.
Or running,
so you get down there, and when you say, have you disconnected the rear anti-roll bar? They said, oh, no, we haven't done that yet. You've got time now. Off you go.
No, there you go. So I'm not that much use at this. But, yeah, it's about feel and relying on drivers being able to give good feedback to the pit crews to allow them to make changes and keeping track of where you are. It's all too easy to kind of lose yourself in the settings, and you'll change something and change the next thing, and you lose your reference point of what really felt well. I mean, ultimately, it's testing that gives you the freedom to be able to do that. And, most of our teams here have not had the opportunity of doing that, certainly the Mission Motorsport ones. And, well, that's one of the joys of endurance racing. So you go out there and you drive the car which is underneath you, because that's the only one you've got. And you go and kind of get the best pace out of it. But all of the team now are all leaning into trying to get tyre pressures right, trying to get the balance right in the car. And particularly GT86 and the MX-5, they're doing a lot with handling balance in order to make it feel nice. Now, GT86, funnily enough, Tom Ingram's got the lead on that. We've one of the Speedworks, Jack, the Speedworks lead mechanic, is in there alongside our guys, and that's just phenomenal for them to get that kind of feedback. Whereas Sophie Burt's in the pit lane, with a bit of Dario, bit of Marino, bit of Dicky, leaning in, helping out, sort of going, this is how you can change the balance and feel of the car. And that's amazing. I mean, just, to be alongside guys like that and learning from them, it's an accelerated learning curve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, reading Sophie's story in the program as well, it's great stuff. We've got 20 minutes of this session to go. You've given us a little bit of an update as to what's going on with the Mission Motorsport cars.
Yeah.
The CRV still hasn't been out,
no.
But apart from that car, let's just gloss over it for a minute.
Yeah.
All the other drivers have gone out and done their qualifying laps.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got everybody through on all of those Mission Motorsport cars, and the outliers as well. There's Steve McCulley, who's done a huge amount of stuff with us. I mean, actually, Steve was the Royal Marine Major who I handed over to in Afghanistan back in 2011. Steve's had an extraordinary progress. We started him off in Academy, and then he's gone all the way up through Academy. He's ended up in British GT, done 2 seasons for Invictus Games Racing, driving the F-Type GT4 car. You've also got Ben Norfolk, who did a similar path to him, ended up in Invictus Games Racing. And he's here, but in a coaching capacity, but alongside, so he's the lead driver in the CRV that's helping along those guys there. So his pathway's very much been along that sort of coaching piece. So we've also got people who are dotted about up and down.
Because you've got some drivers in Synchro Motorsport as well, haven't you? With the automatic Honda Civic.
Lionel O'Connor, who lost his left leg in Iraq in 2006, is in one of those brand new built cars. Or both of them running ROR number plates, which is just a really nice touch. The Honda guys are absolutely fantastic. So it's a privilege to have them alongside us in the pit lane here. And again, we've got beneficiaries who are in there too. Kev Carlton, who's currently serving Royal Navy, A medic is in there, and funnily enough, another medic as well, but a guy who was Royal Artillery, who then found his way into becoming a paramedic, which is James Eaton. James's story is absolutely extraordinary. I mean, he latterly, working as a first responder, was one of the first responders to the Westminster Bridge terrorist attack, and he was also one of the first responders at Grenfell. So his service has continued beyond his military service. And ultimately, he's, mid-40s now and looking at having to do a career change a long way through, in his life. And he's getting mentoring of the absolute highest standard here. And that's what it's all about. So for us, it's knitting together these stories to help these guys and girls on their pathway and using this incredible canvas on which to paint their picture. Now, with that, I've got to disappear off. But if you're listening around the place and you're a Mission Motorsport bloke, girl, hanger-on, marshal, I don't care, I want you in the photograph. As soon as we are allowed to safely do so, then we'll be making our way through out onto the circuit. The cars will go out through the assembly area, and we're going to get that photo with sunset immediately after day qualifying.
And that's going to be the last time we see the sun until Sunday morning.
Yeah, it'll then come out. It will come out at exactly 11 a.m. on Sunday. Mark my words.
Like it always does, James.
Absolutely.
Well done. Thank you very much indeed. You go and organise that. Thanks very much to Major James Cameron, who will now go off and organise the photo shoot, as only James can. He organises most of everything else, so great to hear from him. Quarter of an hour to go on this session then, and Rob Boston has gone back out and has taken back pole position. So whilst Jim and I were having a chat, we've got to change for pole then. So it's Lotus ahead of Caterham. Rob Boston then in the Lotus takes pole with a 1:37.393. Obviously wasn't too impressed by Pete Waters' antics with the Caterham, said, can't have that. And so as yet, we haven't had a response from Pete Waters, but say 15 minutes still to go. Plenty of time for Pete Waters to come back out and give his response. He's got to find just over a quarter of a second if he's going to take pole position back again around the full Anglesey Grand Prix circuit. 1 minute 37.680 is Pete Waters' best time so far. Lee Bristow is out at the moment with the orange 88. Michael O'Reilly is out for Optinec Racing. Michael, who is Optinec in Weybridge, 1 minute 38.854, his best time. He's 200ths of a second quicker than Gary Smith, who is in the 110 at the moment, or actually not at the moment, because Gary Smith is in the pit garage. Tim Child has just taken that car out. So Tim, or not that car, but has gone out with his car. Tim Child then for 110, Piston Emotional Team. Then Steve McCulley, about whom Jim was just eulogising a moment ago, the number 17 Caterham driver, 1 minute 39.541, is the second fastest of the Heroes Trophies cars. And then next up, but in the pit area at the moment, or the paddock area, number 41, the Cock-Wombles team, with a time of 1:39.909. Seventh fastest, number 27, the Scuderia BOG. They're in the garage area at the moment. 64, Ryan Hooker is out at the moment for solo 64 1-1. 1 minute 40.968, the best lap from that team. But Ryan Hooker just going out again to have another go. Lee Bristow goes through, having just come out of the pits in the 88 car. That's not an improvement. Well, that's his startup lap beginning now. Where we get to ninth fastest. This is the fastest of the Class E cars. Class E being for the up to 2 litre cars, and fastest of those is the number 69 Able Care Lotus Elise, this being an Elise Cup class car, unlike the Rob Boston car, which is a full-on race version. And that is number 69, currently in the hands of Daniel Holland. Dan Holland is the 141.172. Colin Wilmot in the pits with his Elise, but that car running well now after its incident in qualifying. Improvement from Steve McCulley, goes third fastest now, number 17. So DSP Racing up to third, 138.730 for Steve McCulley. That puts him just ahead of Optineck. So the and that car, as I say, the Steve McCulley DSP racing car running as a Heroes Trophy car. So the further up the field that can get, the better for it. So Rob Boston in the pits, Lee Bristow out on circuit. Let's go down and see who is quickest in the Citroen class. And that is still being led by the Cotwombles car. Following its off earlier on, Jason Gale has now taken number 420 out for a few laps, brought it back into the pits. So Jason then at the wheel of that car. Second in that class is currently the Team Cat DT car, and that is just a tenth of a second slower. And in fact, the driver of that car at the moment, number 467, Phil Marsh, has just put in the fastest lap for that car. So he's just reduced the gap, but he's still second. So Phil Marsh then second fastest in the Cat DT car, number 467, just ahead of Ian Cameron with the FDL car. So those cars battling over top C1 car, and they are separated by just 0.2 of a second, those three. It's a 2-minute 1.7 for Jason Gale, or for Cotwombles, number 420. 467, Phil Marsh has done a 2 minutes 1.903, and then Ian Cameron has done a 2 minutes 1.916. That's the top three. Then fourth is 2 minutes 2.122 for the Rab Sport racing car, number 432, Richard Barnard, having done a time of 2 minutes 2.122. And then David Drinkwater is the slow car in the team slower car, number 318. But even he has done a 2 minutes 2.519. So he is less than a second off the C1 pace. So C1, when everything else gets boring, we're going to have to concentrate on what's going on in C1, because that's going to be very close indeed. 513 just going through there on another lap. This is the TCS Motorsport car. Paul Turner at the wheel, 2 minutes 2.639. He's within a second of the fastest lap in C1 as well. So not very much to choose between any of those. Meanwhile, back at the front, an improvement for Ryan Hooker, but that doesn't improve his time. Ryan Hooker with the Solo 64 121 car stays 8th, number 64. just over 3 minutes to go of this session, and it's at the moment Lotus ahead of Caterham. Then it's Optinec. Mark Roberts has got back ahead of the DSP Racing Steve McCulley. This is a reminder. I was just saying to somebody off air, this is it as far as qualifying is concerned. This is the timing. This is the only time when you can set times for the grid. Yes, there is a further qualifying session tonight, night qualifying, but that doesn't count for grid positions. There's a further free practice session tomorrow morning, but that doesn't count for grid positions either. So this is it as far as it goes for grid positions. And at the moment, Rob Boston has this advantage of just over a quarter of a second, 1 minute 37.393 at the top. Lee Bristow is out for GPW Racing, but I don't think they're going to be able to get, no disrespect to Lee, but I don't think they're going to be able to get Pete Waters out in time and get him to do a lap before the end of the session. So Lee will have to do his very best. He's about a second off the pace that's required to get pole position off Rob Boston at the moment. Mark Roberts is third fastest in the garage area at the moment for Optinec Racing, 138.328, and the team comprising of Michael O'Reilly and Paul Vernon, and that's a 138.328. I'm pretty sure that was Mark who set that time, so hats off to him. Good performance. Steve McCulley is fourth, 138.730. Fifth fastest is the Piston Emotional team, 110 Caterham car, 138.881, and sixth fastest Ryan Hooker with the Solo 64 Caterham. So those cars, other than Steve McCulley and Rob Boston's Lotus, all Caterham relay cars. Able Care, the Lotus Cup car, Dan Holland is eighth fastest, but he is the fastest of the 2 litre cars in Class E. 139.926 means that he is quickest in his class. The other class leader, Dan Wheeler, out in the Synchro Motorsport Honda Civic, number 77, leads the Invitational class. That only has 3 cars in it, the Invitational class, with the 2 Synchro Motorsport Honda Civics and the CRV, of which we have seen nothing at all, I'm afraid, in this session. Only one lap from Ben Norfolk with the Honda CRV, and then that car has had a problem, and they're as yet unable to have got it sorted. Everybody else in the entry has been out and done at least one lap, as far as I know, which means we've had 44 cars out. As I say, the 44th of them is the Honda CRV. We had a brief red flag during this session when the Cockwomble's BOGOF car went off up at Rocket, but that car was recovered, but is no longer on pole position in the C1 class. Josh Potter has just gone quicker, and so he is, for the Rab Sport team, number 432. He is the fastest in the Citroen C1 class, 2 minutes 1.323, 0.3 of a second quicker than Phil Marsh for the Cat DT team, number 467, and then Jason Gale, third fastest at the moment in the C1 class. Checkered flag is out. The session is at an end. This is the last chance then to come through. An improvement on that last lap from the number 18 car, Paul Sheard Racing car, improving its time right at the end. Didn't improve his position. That was Max Coates, I think. Yes, it was Max Coates at the wheel of the number 18 car. As I say, it didn't improve its position at the end, but it was an improved time. Leaves him fifth in the class for Paul Sheard Racing then. Other cars coming through and taking the checkered flag. And as Jim Cameron was saying a little while ago, the sun reflecting off the sea over in the distance there, not quite down yet. We now have a short break, 45 minutes of a break to get your Jaffa cakes, and then we'll be back on for night practice. And the other thing that if you're not invited to the Jaffa cakes, then everybody is invited to the Mission Motorsport photo, which will be taking place with the sun going down. And Claire Smith can tell us more about that.
No, I can't.
Oh, Claire's going to tell us more about something else.
No, yeah, all it is it's the photo session that we're going to do. As Jim said, we're going to take advantage of this beautiful sunset, which is now taking place. So all of the operations team from Mission Motorsport will be having a little bit of a photo shoot down on the grid.
Excellent. So if you are part of Mission Motorsport in any shape or form, then make sure you're wearing your Mission Motorsport gear. And we also have to polish up the Jaguar, the Mission Motorsport safety car. That will be taking pride of place, and everybody else will then be able to get their glad rags on and have their photograph taken, hopefully with the sun in the background. It's still chilly though, but it's as warm as it's going to get for the next day or two, so just make the most of it, as Claire says, whilst we can.
Yeah, because tomorrow the forecast is not what it is now.
And even if it's supposed to be sunny on Sunday, which it is, it's going to be quite cold. But anyway, let's worry about Sunday when we get there. I'll run down the times that we've just had from qualifying. Fastest then was Rob Boston. Had to take 2 bites at it, but he did finish up with the fastest time. 1 minute 37.393 then for the Lotus Elise, fastest of all. 1 minute 37.680, just over a quarter of a second slower for the GPW racing team, car number 88. The time due to Pete Waters, but the other drivers of that relay team, Jeff Price and Lee Bristow, in their Caterhams. Third fastest ending up there was the Optinek racing team, Michael O'Reilly with Mark Roberts and Paul Vernon. Fairly sure it was Mark Roberts who set the time of 1:38.328 to be third fastest. Fourth fastest and second in the Heroes Trophy category is the DSP Racing Caterham. Steve McCulley there, fourth fastest with a 1:38.730. Fifth fastest, the Piston Emotional team of Caterhams, number 110. That's Tim Child, who was the last driver out, sharing the driving duties with John Shiverell and Gary Smith with their Caterhams. Their time, a 1:38.881. Sixth fastest, number 64, is the Solo 64 1-to-1 Caterham relay team of Ryan Hooker, Will Rossetti and Giuseppe Fillet. That car finishing up in sixth place. Seventh, number 41, the Cockwombles Caterham relay team of Scott Lawrence, Jason Gale, Tristan Judge and Zoltan Sabal. 1 minute 39.909 for them. Eighth fastest, number 69, is the Lotus Cup car, fastest in its class, the Class E. That car having originally been scheduled to be in the Invitational class, but now being shown as being in Class E for the 2-litre cars. Although it's an 1800cc car, it's a turbocharged car, so it gets pushed up a class. David McInulty, Jason McInulty and Dan Holland, the drivers of the Able Care car, 8th fastest. 9th fastest, car number 27, Scuderia BOG. We're not told what BOG stands for, but it's not the front of the grid. Robert Cooper, Matt Drew and Paul Begley, the 3 drivers of that car. And that is, of those cars, because it's a relay team car. 1 minute 40.272 its time. 9th. 10th fastest, number 72, is the second fastest car in Class D. This is the Lotus Elise that had the off in the free practice session or the paid practice session this morning. Number 72, 10th fastest. Then Colin Gillespie, Steve Griffiths, Colin and Oliver Wilmot finishing up 10th, 1 minute 41.535. 11th fastest, number 199, is the Mazda MX-5 of the Paul Sheard racing team. Joe Marshall, Steve Foden and Ben Hansey, the drivers of that car, finishing up 11th quickest. 12th quickest, car number 7. That's the Racy McRaceface relay team of Dart Clayfan, Ben Buckley and Alan Venters. And they finished up in 12th place. In 13th place, car number 5, is the Rodison Motorsport Mazda MX-5 of Paul Rodison, sharing with Rob Austin and Dan Welsh. Their time 1 minute 43.106. 13th fastest. 14th fastest, car number 73, is the second of the TWP racing cars. This is the Mazda MX-5 from their team. It's a 2-litre car. Nick Dohill, John Munro and Brad Philpott sharing the driving there. 1:43.484 for them, 14th fastest. 15th fastest car number 18 is the other Paul Sheard Racing Mazda MX-5 of Gary Colco, Richard Brayland, Max Coates and Paul Sheard himself. 16th fastest car number 21 is the Morgan, this is the relay Morgan for Craig Hamilton Smith, Tony Hurst, John Richards, Tom Richards and Phil Thomas. I say 5 drivers sharing 4 cars, so they're going to have to work out how that works. They're 19th fastest. 20th fastest car number 14. This is the Lancaster Insurance Mazda MX-5 of Peter McNichol, Brian Chandler, Sebastian Fisher and Richard Bernard. And that car was 20th, number 14. 21st, number 51, fastest of the Mission Motorsport cars. And 51 is the Mazda MX-5 from Mission Motorsport. Dario and Marino Franchitti sharing with Richard Mead and Jamie Clark and Sophie Burt. And between them, they managed a 1:minute 48.074 to be 21st fastest. 22nd fastest, number 81 for Scuzzle Motorsport. That's another Mazda MX-5. Nick Bailey, David Smith, Clive Chisel and Roy Munro. And they were 22nd fastest. 23rd fastest is number 101, the Toyota GT86 from Mission Motorsport. That is being driven by Roland Wilkinson, James Cross, Matt Stringer, Tom Ingram and Nick Trott. So 5 drivers in the 101 car. 24th fastest, number 999, is the Ricky Coomber Motorsport car, or RKC Motorsport. This is the one that Ricky is not driving. Mark Simmons, Chris Threadgill and Zach Lucas are the drivers of that car. 24th fastest, number 999. 25th fastest, number 155, is the Track Scotland Mini Cooper. Adam Kindness, Craig Dillon, Lowell Forsyth and Mark Dawson, team of Scottish drivers, finishing up 25th fastest and 26th fastest, because the other Track Scotland car, number 55, finished up 26th fastest. And that's the other Mini Cooper driven by Will Robson, Gordon Long, Adam Morrison and Sandy Bonner. 27th fastest, car number 96, is the Jaffa Cake Racing Mazda MX-5 of Sam Moody, Andy Bailey, Brian Bursey and Daniel Grist. 28th fastest is the other Ricky Coomber car, which is Henry Ormeron. This is car number 99, Henry Ormeron, sharing with Ricky Coomber and Gavin Pickering. That was 28th fastest. 29th fastest was the fastest of the invitational class cars, number 77, the Synchro Motorsport Honda Civic, Steve Davey, Dan Wheeler and Lee Craddock. 30th fastest, car number 11 for Peaky Blinders Racing. That's another Mazda MX-5, Richard Smith, Tim Orme, Stephen Hallett and Oliver Sy. 31st fastest, see if we can get through all of these before the end. 31st fastest, car number 76, the second of the Synchro Motorsport Honda Civics. This one being driven by Alan James, Lionel O'Connor and James Dennison. 32nd fastest, number 9 for Jaffa Cake Racing, another Mazda MX-5 for Stuart Humphrey, Tim Walsh. That's the two of them driving that car. 33rd fastest, number 4, the RAF Motorsport BMW 116 for Scott Lawson, Dave Russell, Dan Smith, Callum McDougall and Paul Cook. They were 33rd. Finished the race out on the track somewhere rather than in the pit lane, not quite sure why. 34th fastest, car number 16, is the R&R MMSA BMW 116 for Keith Atwood, Richard Scott, Adam Dewis, Gareth Moss and Mike Wells. And then 35th fastest and down, we get all of the Citroen C1s. Rabsport Racing, the fastest of them, car number 432. That's Josh Potter, Richard Barnard, Gary Mitchell and Mark Layton. That's the fastest of the Citroen C1s. Second fastest, number 432. Second fastest in C1 class is number 467, the Team Cat DT car of Colin Hode, Phil Marsh, Nick Dauncey and David Alstadter, is in second place in the Citroen class. Third in the Citroen class is the Cockwombles Bog Off car of Jason. This is number 420 for Jason Gale, Zoltan Sarbai, Scott Lawrence, and Tristan Judge. Fourth fastest in the Citroen class, number 417, is Ian Cameron. This is the FDL packaging car. Then it's Team Slower, number 318. Fifth in the Citroen class. Sixth in the Citroen class is number 513 for TCS Motorsport. And seventh in the Citroen class, Scuderia Sundial. That's the car that James Cameron is driving, number 319. Eighth in the Citroen class is the Mission Motorsport number 4 team. This is the 103 numbered car, which is being driven by Lucas Hutchings, Jack Hillier, Mayrick Cox, and Ivor Mayers. That's number 103. And then ninth in the Citroen class is number 400, the other TCS car, but this is the Citroen, which is being driven by Steve Bezic, Andy Jones, Andy Mackay, and Paul Crawford. That was a car that had a slight ding with the Lotus number 72 in paid practice this morning, and Steve Bezic doing a time just 0.3 of a second off the car in front of it. And then the final car in the 44 car entry is the Honda CR-V Mission Motorsport number 3 car, number 102, due to be driven by Ben Norfolk, Darren Langerfeld, Michael Watts, and John Allen Butterworth. But I'm afraid it only did one lap, and then the car had a problem. So we have to hope that that car is going to be able to be fixed overnight, and we'll be able to participate in the race tomorrow. Still the night session to come, and that will be coming up in about half an hour's time. The photograph has been taken, so well done to everybody from Mission Motorsport for being involved with that. Thank you to the cars for making it look good as well, and thank you to the world's media for taking all the photographs. And as I say, we'll have a short break now and be back with you at 5 o'clock when we'll be able to get on with the night practice session, which won't be counted for grid positions, but will be counting in terms of drivers setting up the cars and doing their night qualifying laps.